Looking back on 2020, it was not only the year of the COVID-19 pandemic, it was also the year of intensifying climate change. Hot temperatures, floods, storms, droughts, wildfires, and even locust plagues. Even more worrying, the world is heading for at least a 3 degrees Celsius temperature rise this century. What actions can be taken to adapt to this new climate emergency within an environmental management system based on ISO 14001-2015? A new ISO Whitepaper may be the answer. Let's take a look. Welcome to EMSmastery, where we look at the successful strategies and tactics to master environmental management and sustainability. If we're meeting for the first time, my name is Andrew Marlowe. This episode looks at a newly published ISO white paper, How to Use ISO 14090 to Support ISO 14001 and the Adaptation to Climate Change, where ISO 14090-2019 is the international standard on adaptation to climate change, which contains principles, requirements and guidelines. Globally, we need to take strong action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to meet the Paris Agreement goals of holding global warming this century to well below 2 degrees Celsius and pursuing a target of 1.5 Celsius. This would limit the impacts of climate change on vulnerable communities and ecosystems. There are two main courses of action that can be taken: mitigation and adaptation. Mitigation refers to efforts to reduce climate change, which involves reducing the flow of heat-trapped greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Mitigation can mean using new technologies and renewable energies, making older equipment more energy efficient, or changing management practices or consumer behaviour. An example of mitigation would be to swap petrol-fuelled vehicles for electric vehicles, thereby reducing the end-of-pipe emissions from the vehicles. However, it is recognised that climate change impacts seem to be accelerating and mitigation efforts will take decades to have a beneficial effect, such as the total replacement of fossil fuel-based vehicles for electric vehicles. Adaptation takes a different approach. It is the process of adjustment to actual or expected climate and its effects to build in climate resilience to the fundamentals of business practice. Examples of adaptation would be building a flood defence to protect new domestic housing so that they are significantly above the current flood levels to allow for housing resilience to the increasing climate change affecting rainfall and high flood events. These adaptation changes are more likely to be successful in the short to medium term, but may have additional long-term benefits. But governments and businesses will need to take a longer-term view for planning and incorporating climate change within their strategic thinking. Those already using ISO 14001 environmental management systems will know about mitigation of climate change. In combination with ISO 14090, there is an opportunity to integrate climate change adaptation into the environmental management system. This newly published ISO white paper informs users of ISO 14001 about the benefits of using ISO 14090 alongside ISO 14001, how ISO 14090 is structured, relevant clauses in both standards where ISO 14090 supports ISO 14001. To assist in the understanding of the link between the two international standards, the white paper provides a table which indicates how clauses in ISO 14001 can be supported by the parts of ISO 14090, with direct reference to key clauses in each standard, and includes notes to explain the rationale. For example, the relationship between planning requirements of Clause 6 of ISO 14001 and the corresponding Clauses 5, pre-planning, and Clause 6, assessing climate change impacts, including opportunities, in ISO 14090. Finally, the white paper provides references to ISO 14001 and ISO 14090, as well as other related international standards such as ISO 14004 with guidelines to support your environmental management system, ISO 14091 2021 with guidelines on vulnerability, impacts and risk assessment, and ISO TS 14092 2020, which provides requirements and guidance on adaptation planning for local governments and communities. All these international standards can provide further support to your climate change adaptation projects. You can find out more about ISO 14090 2019 by clicking on the link here. So, to summarise, the white paper gives a clear roadmap on how to use ISO 14090 to support your climate change adaptation, and the opportunity to drive this adaptation using your existing environmental management system based on ISO 14001 2015. If you want to go deeper into climate change adaptation, the United Nations have published a report on the adaptation gap with global and local insights into the opportunities for using adaptation to build climate change resilience. Further information on the United Nations Adaptation Gap report and the ISO 14090 white paper are given in the description box below, including a link to the other resources on the EMSmastery.com website. If this episode has helped to advance your understanding of climate change adaptation and the use of ISO 14090, please leave a comment in the box below if this episode has helped you. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel to ensure that you don't miss out on other episodes on environmental management and sustainability. Until then, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this video, you can watch other episodes by clicking on the boxes in the top and bottom right, and to subscribe to this channel, please click on the link to the left. Thank you.